So today I thought we would have a little talk about self-compassion. And when I started to look at it, I realized that I couldn't talk to you about self-compassion without also talking about self-acceptance and self-rejection, because they're all tied in together. And so I wanted to start by talking about self-acceptance. When you were a baby, and when I was a baby, we experienced self-acceptance 100%. And then we go the rest of our lives trying to get back to that place of self-acceptance. It's the place that Jung calls individuation and that Maslow calls self-realization. It's a place where we are exactly who we're supposed to be, and typically we don't. It's a place where we accept exactly who we are, and we typically don't get there until late in life. But we've already experienced it. We experienced it as a baby, where we didn't judge who we were, we just lived, and we cried when we wanted to, and we laughed when we wanted to, and we did quirky, goofy things, and we just were young kids. We were childlike, and childlike is something that we also try to get back to later on in life. Somewhere during our childhood, we experienced rejection, and that rejection could be a parent that told us no, a sibling that wouldn't let us go play with them, a friend that rejected us. Something happened where all of a sudden that self-acceptance that we had got rocked because we were told no and rejected. And when we're rejected, being rejected is the opposite of being accepted. And so then we went into this place of, ooh, I've been rejected. Now what do I do? Because now I've just realized that there's a part of me that somebody else doesn't like, and so I'm going to internalize that as there's a part of me that isn't perfect. So then we get into self-rejection, because then we start to look at the areas in our life that we felt rejected, and now we reject those parts of us because they've created pain for us, right? So what happens then is that we go through this phase, probably the rest of our lives, until we find periods of self-acceptance where we reject parts of us, whether that's my goofy laugh or my big butt or my weird personality, or I don't know, it could be anything, and we reject it. And then what happens is we start to look at places, hopefully we start to look at places where we can find compassion for the areas that we rejected. And if you can think about a young kid or anybody that's felt rejected, having compassion for that person is what will help that person heal and feel better and accept more parts of him or herself. Well, it's the same thing about us as people, where as an individual, if I've rejected parts of myself, the only thing that's going to heal that is compassion for those rejected parts. And then the compassion will lead back to acceptance. If I can look at those parts of me that I've rejected, and I can say, if that was a little kid, which it typically was a little kid inside of us that was rejected, if that was a little kid, how would I treat that little kid? And typically, you would treat that little kid better than you're treating yourself. So that's what self-compassion is. It's looking at the areas that maybe I don't necessarily like, but acceptance isn't like. Acceptance is seeing the things I like and dislike and accepting them as part of who I am anyway. It's not approval and disapproval. It's that each one of us is unique, and that's wonderful to accept that each one of us is unique, and we each have our specific gifts. So we start with self-acceptance as a baby. Somewhere we felt rejection. We have to have self-compassion to combat and to nourish and to help that self-rejection to not be rejection anymore. And then the more compassion we have, the more we get back to self-acceptance, individuation, self-realization, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you just call it happiness. 2 cents from Karen and Paco. As he would say, bark, bark. Peace.